Selamat datang kembali di episode Beranda Ilmu. Nah, halo Jupaners, kali ini kita kedatangan tamu yang sangat spesial ya. Kita kedatangan tamu dari Kedutaan Besar Amerika Serikat. Nah,
iya.
Iya. Kamu sebagai students.
Ya keren banget pasti ya. Kita bisa dari banyak guest yang ke Jupan, kita didatengin, bahkan kita nggak invite, kita didatengin oleh Embassy USA. Dan ini kayaknya menarik banget ya, apa yang dibahas di seminarnya. Ini kita membahasnya tentang how to be a transfer student.
Nah, dan kita bakalan membahas tentang student exchange ya.
Dan poin tentang student exchange.
Nah, bagi kalian ini yang mau banget pindah gitu sekolah ke USA, United States of America, boleh banget nih nonton podcast ini sampai habis karena ini meetnya tuh semuanya ada di sini ya. Nah, oke, kalau gitu karena udah penasaran banget nih ya, langsung aja kita tanya ke guest star kita sendiri. Now, for our guest stars, may introduce yourself first. From you can.
Sure. So hi everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Mary Trishak. I am a public diplomacy officer at the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta. Been in Indonesia for 4 years already, and I manage all of our education programs and our youth exchange programs. So I always get to say I have the best job at the U.S. Embassy.
All right. So hi everyone. My name is Santika. So I am one of the advisor for Education USA Indonesia, and this is officially my first podcast with the podcast setting. So we did, if you know, at America, we did a podcast in at America, but it's a stage, right? So this one is like podcast. You know, I'm like, I'm nervous now.
Don't be nervous. It's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Education USA plays a big role to help anybody who wants to study in the United States, whether that's for the, let's say, exchange program, right? As long as it's going for the United States as the destination, you can come to us. Bachelor degree, master degree, PhD, you can just come to us because everything's free of charge and open for public. Yeah.
All free.
Yes.
Look at that, for free. All the information for free. Now, who's gonna ask the first question? Is it you or me?
You wanna rock paper scissors?
Okay. What? Sorry?
Rock paper scissors.
Oh, okay. Let's rock paper scissors first to see who's asking the question. Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you win.
Okay.
Rock,
And ask the
scissors.
first question then. So, what are the bilateral relations between Indonesia and the US, specifically on educations?
Yeah. Education has always been one of the key priorities in our relationship between the United States and Indonesia. Last year we celebrated our 75th year of relations between Indonesia and the United States, and for that whole period of time we've always been encouraging Indonesians to study in the United States and also finding ways for Americans to come and study here in Indonesia. So every year we exchange almost 350 students on our U.S. Department of State international exchange programs. So we send high school students to the U.S. on the KLES program, high school students to the U.S. on the Tech Girls program, and then we also have programs for university students. So our most famous scholarship, the Fulbright Scholarship, and then we also have programs like Waisili, which develops young leaders to go to the United States. But then we also bring in Americans to come to Indonesia. So every summer we bring high school students to Indonesia to study Indonesian language for the summer so that they can understand Indonesian culture and Indonesian language. And college students also. So education plays a big role in just helping people in Indonesia and people in the United States get to know one another, understand one another, because we're doing a lot of amazing work in economic development and security, but if we don't really understand one another, then we won't be successful in those other things. So education, I think, is the key, right? It's the most important part of our relationship. So that's why we're doing everything we can to find opportunities for Indonesians to go to the United States and bring more Americans here to Indonesia.
Yeah, you should write that down. There's a lot of list of ways you can like the program for student exchange. There's a lot of ways, right?
This isn't on the questions list, but may I ask personally, what's your experience in Indonesia?
Yeah, so I've been in Indonesia now for 4 years. Before being posted here on this tour, I'd never come to Indonesia before. I had always wanted to come to Indonesia, but I always caught, and things came up and I never got to come. So it's been a dream to be here. I've got to travel a lot. I've been to Kalimantan and Sumatra and Java and Labuan Bajo and Flores and of course Bali, right? And everywhere I've gone, I've just met such wonderful people, such nice people. And there's so much enthusiasm among young people to study in the United States and to engage with the world. So that's been really exciting. And then I gotta just say, I love Indonesian food. So my favorite thing to eat is sambal. Give me sambal mata, sambal terasi, sambal kecombrang. Like, I love spicy food. And so Indonesia is it's my happy place in terms of
So I
food.
guess 4 years, how much of Indonesian, of bahasa Indonesia have you learned?
Saya harus belajar bahasa Indonesia, yeah. But we gotta practice English today, right? Yeah.
I heard before coming here, in an interview that I watched, you need to learn Bahasa for like a year, but it was COVID time.
Yeah, so before our postings with the U.S. Department of State, most of us are required to learn the language for 1 full year. So before coming to Jakarta, I studied Indonesian for a full year with Bu Maria and Pak Sige, and unfortunately it was COVID time, so it was all on Zoom. And so our language classes for the State Department, they're from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon every day. Like, that's your full job for the year. You just study language.
Even weekends?
Yeah, no, not the weekends, thankfully. But so it was like 9 months. We were on Zoom every day learning Indonesian. And we started with, hi, nama saya Mary. And then went up to like reading newspaper articles about trade and about the role of ASEAN and Indonesia. So it gets more and more complicated.
Of course.
So yeah, it's always very interesting to have to study a language to go into the State Department. This is my previous post. I was in Vietnam, and I had to learn Vietnamese before I went there. Yep, and then I also speak Chinese. So it's one of the nice things about being a diplomat is you get to learn a lot of different languages. So
That's the dream.
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Right. So now let's move on to the next question.
Oh, sure.
What are the career prospects for transfer students who graduate and want to stay in America? Like, what's the situation here?
Yeah. So, Santika, do you want to take this one and talk about OPT and
sure.
CPT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that would be my pleasure. So, OPT and CPT is part of like the frequently asked questions in Education USA Indonesia, right? So, if you become an international student in the United States, whether you're from Indonesia or other countries, you are automatically fall into this international student category, right? So, the United States have this program called CPT and OPT. So CPT is when you are still studying and you're just like, summer break. You would like to take a summer break from the university and the college, and you would, want to do internship in XYZ company, right? So you apply for that opportunity for the internship, okay? And then you let your school know, the international student office or the office that especially handle international student. You let them know that, hey, I want to do internship. I want to apply for this CPT. Right? And then you get the green light, right? Okay, you can do CPT, and then you get the job for as an intern, and then off you go, working as an intern in the United States or even back in Indonesia. Like you just need to communicate with them that where you are going to do the internship and everything. But typically, the CPT is used for you to do internship in the United States, because if you just take the vacation and then you come back to Indonesia, then you don't need to use the CPT for the United States, right? So
But it lets you work legally in the United States during your studies.
Exactly. So thanks for adding that, Mary. And then for the OPT, it's a bit different. The only difference I would say is because OPT is meant for when you're about to graduate, and after you graduate, only then you can do the OPT, right? So before you graduate, like there's this period where they will let you know, like, hey, you can apply for OPT, and then you can apply for that. Just prepare all of the documents needed. Again, the International Student Office will help you with that, right? And then once you get the permit, you can also look for the job. Meanwhile, while waiting for the green light again, you can just apply for jobs and hunt for jobs. Once the OPT permit comes out, you got a job, then you can work. So for international student, the current regulation is that you can work 1 year after the graduation, the OPT. It has to be aligned with your program. So for example, you're studying engineering, right? And then you can work under the OPT in a field, in a job that relates to the engineering field. So that's a example. So if you're in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics program, you can even apply for another extension. Once the 1 year is almost done, then you feel like, oh, I need more experience, right? So you can apply for the extension. If the extension is granted, then you can add 2 more years into that. So that can total to 3 years.
Yeah. So it's a great opportunity, once you've finished your major and you want like real practical experience of working in that field in the United States, doing the OPT or even during the CPT during your program, lets you see how an American company does work in that area. If it's engineering, if it's law, if it's history, I mean, there's a number of different things that you can do. So it's a really great opportunity to get that global work experience. And then when you come back to Indonesia, like all the companies are going to want to hire you because you've already had this US work experience.
That happens.
And then sometimes, while you're studying, you can also get a job on campus. So a lot of students might get a job like as a research assistant for one of their professors. That's particularly popular in like science fields, like you do biology. You can work in your professor's biology lab and do research for them. So there's a lot of different options for working while you're in the United States, and the international office kind of explains it all once you get to school.
It's really great. It's really beneficial both in America and in Asia.
Yes. It is a priceless experience. I would say once a lifetime experience on top of your study abroad in the US. And I want to add that a lot of people think the working in the United States as an international student legally, like CPT or OPT, is very competitive, it's hard and everything. Well, it's always like that. It has always been like that. Not even in the United States. In Indonesia, it's also competitive, right? So we need to be more open-minded and be more critical that, yes, of course it's going to be competitive. It's good stuff, right? So of course it's competitive. The more people know about CPT and OPT, the more competition that will go there. So our homework is how do we do our best so that we can be more competitive.
Find the good companies that want to hire you.
Put more effort,
So not only you get to study abroad, you can also get a job as well.
Yes.
Really great.
Get that good work experience.
Because I experienced it myself. I work on campus. So I worked in. I was enrolled in a community college. Right, it's a smaller institution compared to four-year university, and I work as a peer activity leaders, and also kalau di Indonesia we call it OSIS. It's called student government in the community college, and then it's just like on top of your daily activities. It's kind of like part-time job if you consider the amount of hours. It's maximum of 20 hours per week. Full-time is 40 hours.
Job too.
Exactly. So it's really valuable experience to the point these days I still feel like if I did not ever be a peer activity leader, I wouldn't be an advisor here in Education USA.
In the student government. So for the next
want to ask about in Indonesia. There's actually a lot of people that when they sign up for college, they accidentally pick the wrong major. Like they experience the major for a few months, and then like, oh no, I picked the wrong major. I don't want to study this. And what's that like in America? And is there any accommodation for the program?
Right.
Because you said like the job has to align with the major.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the best things about most U.S. universities is that you are not required to pick a major when you go to campus, right? So for your first year of college and your second year of college, you don't have to decide what your major is yet. You can take classes in a variety of different departments and find the one that you think is the best fit for you. So there are some programs like engineering or some like hard science programs where you have to go in right away and know like, oh, I want to do XYZ program. But I would say about 95% of students on campuses in the United States, their first year, their second year, they don't quite know yet what they want to do,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Maybe they want to do history, maybe they want to do art, maybe they want to do sports studies. And the really great thing is you are free to change and to kind of look around. It's like a buffet, right? And you get to just champur, like try all the different things and see which one is the best. And then after your second year, you declare your major. And then for your last 2 years, then you're really working on the coursework for your major. So that's how most programs work. But even after you've declared your major, if you get really into the coursework and you decide, it's not quite for me, you can still change
it.
So you can change your major.
Are there for changing majors in Indonesia? The process is kind of messy. But in America, is it different?
It kind of depends. So it depends how far into the program you are. So for like your final year, right? If you've done almost all of your coursework and then decide at the last minute, oh, I want to change my major. You do have to make sure that you meet the requirements of that major. So every major, if you go look up the university on the internet and you select like a different major, it'll tell you need to have this many courses from this group and this many courses from this group, right? So for example, I was an Asian studies major, right? So I had to take a certain number of language classes. I had to have 4 years of language. So I did 4 years of Chinese when I was in high school or in college. And then I had to have 2 classes from government, 2 classes from history, 2 classes from literature, 2 classes from the arts. And I could choose from a variety of different classes, but they had to meet those requirements, right? So as long as by the end I had gotten all of them, then I was okay to go. I was very close. You can also major and minor, right? So you can have what's called a minor. I was 1 class away from having a minor in government. So if I had just taken 1 more class, but I didn't really realize until it was too late, and I was like, I'm not going to stay at school any longer. I want to graduate. So there's a lot of freedom in terms of selecting the courses that go into your major, and just in terms of selecting the major that you want to study. It's very convenient.
I would like to add to that. Like, I think when you are here and you're applying to attend any U.S. universities, you may have a lot less idea what you want to do. But when you're there, right? Because that's the I would like to say it's the purpose of that first 1 to 2 years for you to explore, self-exploration, learn what you want to do after you graduate, look at the trends or the market. Some people they can do a lot of things and they just want to choose something that makes maybe their parents proud or something like that. So in that first 2 years, 1 to 2 years, you can definitely make good use of it to explore.
So self-discovery.
Yes, exactly. That's what we are doing in the first 2 years.
All right, so let's move on to the next question.
Sure.
All right. So the next question is excluding financial needs, right? What are the general requirements for studying in America?
So every university lists very clearly what the requirements are for their specific universities. And it's very different university by university. We have over 4,000 universities in the United States. And the United States is a little different than other countries. We don't have national university systems, right? So our public universities are state public universities. So every state has its own system. So that's 50 different state systems. Plus we have a lot of private universities, right?
Is there any way to like keep tabs on it?
Well, we have our Education USA advisors who can help you find, pick the colleges that you're interested in. But I think, one of the things that you really need to think about when you're thinking about going to study in the United States is really trying to decide what type of university you want to go to, right? Do you want to be in a city? Do you want to be in a small town?
Yep.
Do you want to be in a country? Do you want to be, somewhere hot? Do you want to be somewhere cold? Do you want to be somewhere where it's easy to get Indomie and halal food?
Exactly.
Or do you want to be somewhere where it's like maybe more international?
Yep.
So those kinds of questions are really, that's the first thing that you have to start thinking about is what kind of place do I want to study? Once you narrow that down, it gets a little bit easier. Most international students will have to take English language tests to go to the United States, but the requirements vary depending on the school. Some schools require IELTS or TOEFL test. For some schools, you could do Duolingo test. And then for some schools, like if you enter into a community college, you might need to show that you have a language proficiency, but the score might not need to be that high, right? So there's that piece of it. There's also some general tests. One is called the SAT and the ACT. Those are kind of general knowledge tests that are supposed to show kind of your aptitude for studying in the United States. Some schools require them, but some schools don't. So it's very different, right? So if you don't want to take the test, then find a school that doesn't require it. It's very easy.
That's right.
So I think those are kind of the biggest things, is really just to do your research in terms of which schools you want to apply to. And then come talk to one of our Education USA advisors. It's free. They can walk you through the whole process. They have a lot of resources available, and they can help you out.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we are here. That's why, Education USA is, created in the first place. I think it's to guide students to do that.
And
especially.
Also talk to your parents. Your parents can come and talk to our advisor, and they can get all their questions answered too.
Yes.
Basically, it's just the thing that needed for most of them is the English test.
Yes.
Probably the SAT program.
Maybe. I mean, it really depends right now.
Yeah. So I like to, my first session with advisees, most of my advisees come to me when they are still trying to discover, like, okay, if I want to study to US, what do I need, right? What are the requirements, right? So I'm gonna give back the question to them, like, what are you looking for, right? So in the first place, you need to know, at least, what kind of degree you are looking for, right? Yeah. So then after that, it goes like what Bu Mary just said, what kind of school you're looking for, what kind of environment. Do you want to take SAT or ACT test? If you don't want to, then let's find schools that don't have those requirements. If your, say, TOEFL IBT or English test score is only X number, right? And you're like worried, there are no school that will accept me. Afraid not. US have so many schools.
So many schools. And all the requirements are so different. So really, you can find, we like to say that you can find the school that's the best fit for you. Right? So we'll meet your finances, we'll meet your test requirements, we'll meet your living requirements. We can find a school that is going to be good for you.
Yes.
So it's very versatile. Okay. So let's move on to the fourth question. Right?
Okay.
What are the social challenges that transfer students will have to face in the US?
The hardest thing is just culture shock, because it's a different culture.
Yeah.
And you get homesick. you know, and you want your bakso at night, or you want some Indomie, or you want to pay for something with Gojek or Ovo, and those kinds of things are different. So that's the biggest social problem. It's not even a problem. It's just something you have to keep in mind, right? That it's going to be different, and you have to have an open mind.
Yes.
So it's important to go make friends and have people around you, make a community that you can rely on, so that when you're trying to figure out how do you pay for things, when you're trying to figure out, okay, there's no bakso, but there's got to be something like bakso. Like, what can we try and find? That you have a community around you to help you. Yeah.
So basically adapting to the U.S. culture.
Yes.
So, well, that's. Let's move on to another question because that's probably quite short.
Yeah, sure.
The answer is quite short. So, last one is this. What is the process of choosing a host family? Because I heard, of course, if there's a student exchange from the US here with the host parents, maybe one of us wants to have our parents as our host parents. So, what does the process look like?
Yeah. So on our exchange programs, our implementing partners in the United States find host families for us, and they kind of create, information about the family. Like, do they like sports? Do they like arts? Do they like music? Kind of those things. And then we ask you the same questions, right? Like, what are the things that interest you? Do you like cooking? Do you like camping? And then we try to match the interests of the student and the family so that we can find a good fit. And we have had times in the past where, maybe the host family, they seemed like they would get along and they didn't quite get along, and they've changed families, and then everything's, much more smooth. But I would say about 95% of our students who go on these programs, the host family becomes like their second family. They call them their American mom and dad. They invite them to come and visit them to Indonesia. It's really, you become part of the family, and it's really wonderful. And all of our exchange programs, we send people all over the United States. So you're not just going to go to New York or Washington, D.C. or L.A. Like, you might go to Idaho, right? Or Alaska or Louisiana. So you really get a good chance to see the variety of life in the United States.
So we get taken on road trips and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's definitely
Camping trips, road trips.
That's definitely one of the highlights,
things,
right?
Yeah.
No, a lot of the students actually are excited to study in the States because there are so many things to explore, including if those students love to travel. They do that like in the 1 week summer break or every semester break. They probably have like a few days, 1 week. Sometimes they go for a road trip. It's fun.
I love to go road tripping and camping and just exploring. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, So, there are some actually is planning to have parents to be one of the host parents.
Oh, wonderful.
I applied.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. I mean, I think that, again, just being open-minded and understanding that, when you're in a new culture and you're in a new environment, maybe sometimes you might make a mistake. Right? But mostly it's because it's a misunderstanding. Right? And so if everyone just has good, open communication and is open-minded and willing to accept one another and the differences that one another have, you're going to have a great experience. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Completely.
All right. And we'll also try and build a supportive community.
Very important.
Nice.
Alright, so that's for this episode. Now, episode ini udah menarik banget ya karena kalian udah dengar tadi ada list yang dimana programnya udah banyak banget dan juga cara-cara buat masuknya tuh juga udah dikasih tahu banget dan ternyata gampang dan bahkan gratis.
Yes.
It's free.
That's right.
It's free. So it's really easy for you to be a student exchange part of the program in Indonesia to the US. So if you are considering going, then just go.
Or
then
even
just go.
you could be one of the host families of the American student that's gonna
That's a great idea.
that could happen too.
Yeah, so that's it for this episode. It's really been a pleasure having you here.
It's been really fun to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
And yeah, don't forget to apply if you are considering or searching. So
The only way you know you'll fail is if you don't try.
so try.
Just try.
Yes.
Alright then, that's it for this episode. Itu saja untuk episode kali ini. Selamat pagi, siang, sore, dan malam bagi semuanya. Terima kasih yang sudah menonton. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.